On July 11th, 2021, Rick and Morty released perhaps its most controversial episode yet, as the then lowest rated and most hated episode aired for the very first time. I'm not kidding when I say pretty much everyone hates this thing. Listen, I'll be the first to admit that this TV show actually has a lot of enjoyable episodes and moments. No one can deny the cultural impact Rick and Morty once had on society. I still see Pickle Rick memes like every day. Why do I see these all the time? But that's not to say that this wacky cartoon doesn't come with its fair share of controversy. You can avoid the online fandom, you can pretend that weird anime spin-off doesn't exist, but every now and then there comes a moment so bad, so horrendous, that it's impossible to forget about it. So today I'll be taking a look at the most hated Rick and Morty episode of all time. I'd be pretty surprised to find anyone who actually likes this episode. I previously covered the current lowest rated episode in the franchise, but while that episode is hated for being extremely boring, this episode I'm covering today is hated for being, quote, peak cringe, so disgusting, and pure harrowing shittiness. These are real comments left on my video. So today I'll be trusting my viewers by watching and over-explaining the most hated Rick and Morty episode in full to see if it's really that bad. Oh god, wait, he does what with his sister? Anyway, enough with the intro. Go grab your copy of God of War 2 for the PlayStation 2, and let's jump into what most people call the most hated Rick and Morty episode of all time. Real quick, I have no sponsor for this video, so simply liking the video would mean the world to me. Seriously, thank you guys so much for supporting me in every way possible. On to the video. This episode that everyone seems to hate so much is called Rickdependence Spray. The title obviously being a reference to the 1996 film Independence Day. I've rewatched that entire movie in preparation for this episode. Let's see how much they've made it worse. The episode begins at the horse hospital where Morty is begging his mom to hurry up with work because the two are about to go watch a movie. Before heading out, Morty notices a very particularly shaped machine, which... you know. Morty turns it on, and the motion of this thing is enough to get him locked in for a couple seconds. He opens his eyes real wide. There's probably a million thoughts going through his head. Dude's like 14 years old and doing the Danny DeVito reaction gif. It's hilarious. Just trust me. The mom walks back in and is ready to head out, which is when Morty shows a sudden interest in working at the hospital.
So, does your hospital ever need, like, after-school volunteers?
Yeah, do you guys need someone to watch this breeding machine overnight, or... I'm like 90% sure that machine can kill a person. The episode then cuts to 1 week later. Not only do we see Morty rehydrating, implying that he's been getting busy with the machine, but we also never hear about that movie that he went to go watch with his mom, which is a clever reference to the film Joker 2. Nobody talks about that movie because it was bad and nobody cares. Morty sees Rick rolling a whole barrel of horse sauce into his garage. When Morty checks in on Rick to see what he's up to, we're told about a race of underground dwelling cannibal horse people that are annoying Rick or something. Rick is building this bioweapon that will hopefully take them all out. This is all pretty standard Rick and Morty exposition so far. If this is somehow your first time ever watching Rick and Morty, I'm so sorry, but yes, it is always this weird. Anyway, the joke here is that this bioweapon will only work on the horse people because Rick is specifically using the barrel full of horse sauce. I'm using the word sauce right now because YouTube probably hates the actual word that's in there. Bear with me. But as we know, the barrel probably isn't filled with horse stuff because Morty has been using the machine non-stop. Surely this one scene won't alter this franchise's reputation forever. There's no way. I mean, have a little faith, guys, okay? The Rick and Morty writers have always been known for their good decisions. Right? Anyway, Rick turns on his machine and flashbangs every viewer currently watching. After being affected by the blast, Morty wakes up to see a bunch of scary floating monsters eating people alive. I'm just gonna rip the band-aid off now. The monsters are semen. This is going to be a long episode. Rick is trying to shoot all of them because they're clearly very hostile. The running gag in this episode is that Rick blames himself for causing all of this, even though it's kind of Morty's fault.
I blame myself, unless there was something about the sperm I didn't know. Okay, good, then it's your fault.
Morty is so quick to throw Rick under the bus. That's the guy who brought you to Boob World, dude. Show some respect. Anybody who's seriously watched this show before knows that Rick is constantly getting into trouble, from getting arrested by the Galactic Federation to accidentally killing an entire civilization's god. This dude is basically a giant disaster magnet, which now includes the crime of being part of a bad Independence Day parody. Go figure. Speaking of which, while the whole family is trying to escape, the FBI/military show up to recruit Rick for help. The main comparison so far between this and the actual Independence Day movie is obviously the whole alien invasion thing. Although in Independence Day it was an actual alien invasion, and in this episode it's not aliens, and also the military gets involved and is over-patriotic in both stories. The family is meeting up with the president, and Rick is kind of crashing out because he thinks he's at fault. The president low-key thinks it might be Rick's fault, but after questioning Morty, he ends up blaming the horse people that were mentioned earlier.
Morty, you've always been a straight shooter.
You can't prove that! Wait, what?
After Morty talks about America for a little bit, this random scientist dude we've never seen before shows up. His name is Professor Shabooboo, and he's kind of an idiot who does nothing at all, if I'm being honest. The only reason this character even exists at all is because the actual Independence Day movie also had a scientist character. Very clever, very creative. The scientist says that the monsters are most likely headed to the Grand Canyon, because I mean, think about the joke for like 2 seconds, dude. Okay, it's pretty obvious why they're headed there. The president gives the monsters the name Orgazagoblins, which is definitely very stupid, but probably won't get me demonetized, so I might use it a couple times. Not gonna lie. The scientist somehow has one of them locked in a cage. Morty starts sweating because once they test it, they'll realize that it's actually his. Because of this, Morty just straight up shoots it with a laser gun, and the president is super chill with it, I guess.
Beautiful cricket. Oh, why? It had a gun.
Are you out of your mind?
I love how the president is always some idiot that has no idea what's going on. Oh god, don't read into that. It's not that deep. Morty suggests that they just blow up all the monsters, and everyone's just like, yeah, that's a good idea. So Rick and Morty are now being deployed with a special team of super hardcore Marines.
I'm gonna make these things pregnant with death.
So because Rick is super smart here and knows that he's on TV half the time, he asks Morty which one of these background characters is probably gonna die first. Morty says that's a very morbid and cruel question, but obviously it's the old guy with the katana. I'm not exactly sure what this guy is a reference to be honest. My closest guess would be Katana from Suicide Squad, because that one scene has been memed to death, and also they both have literally zero impact on the respective stories. I mean, at least they look cool, I guess.
This is Katana. She's got my katana.
Anyway, the monsters built a catapult and shot at the plane, Angry Bird style. Fun fact, this thing is actually called a trebuchet. Not sure if I'm saying that right. I've never heard of that word before this episode, so at least I'm learning something. Everyone in the plane is forced to parachute down. Shout out to Fortnite for inventing parachutes. Once landed, Rick and Morty meet up with the katana guy and some other dude who talks like he's a Twitch streamer.
We just took a fat L, and what we need is a fat P.
A bunch of Orgazagoblins show up and stab the streamer dude through the stomach. He sadly gets eliminated, but turns out he has martyrdom from Call of Duty, and Loki gets a quad kill, so at least that's a positive outcome for our good guys. And listen, I know I've been joking around with this episode quite a bit so far, but it's time to get serious, okay? This episode is very serious, as we'll see. After the blast, Morty approaches a trapped monster who you might think wants to eat him alive, but actually this dude recognizes Morty right away and decides not to hurt him. Morty also hugs him for a bit. It's a little weird. Try not to think about it too hard.
I'll call you Sticky. Because you're sticky and you're stuck.
I know it's just a cartoon, and the animation actually isn't even that gross, but the implication here is really hard to ignore. Rick wants to shoot the monster, but Morty stops him because it's kind of his child in a weird way. There's like 3 episodes in the show where Morty has children. Why does this always happen? The katana guy is all mysterious as he sniffs in the direction of where they need to go. This dude basically has wall hacks. He knows exactly where all the bad guys are somehow. And real quick, I have to mention this. During all this, there's this weird subplot with the president and the rest of the family. Basically, during this entire episode, the president and his crew are extremely sexist, despite there literally being a woman in uniform on screen half the time. Summer comes up with a good plan of baiting all the monsters with eggs, since, you know, that's what they do. They like go towards the egg. That's the joke, haha. The president doesn't care though, because L plus ratio plus woman opinion detected. The scientist guy comes in and repeats the exact same plan Summer did, and this time the president is all for it. I think this type of comedy can sometimes actually work really well, but to be honest, it comes off as extremely lazy and formulaic here. There is a funny line right at the end after the scientist steals Summer's joke though.
Get this guy a Nobel Prize.
You became a woman today.
Anyway, back to the A-team, and the katana guy is being all cool, as usual. More monsters appear, so the katana guy tries to take them all on at once. He somehow ends up slicing himself and dies in what's clearly a parody of like a very heroic sacrifice. We also find out this guy was wearing his wife's underwear, which was definitely not a necessary detail, but my guess is the writers were just using a random word generator by this point in the episode. Just trying to make anything work, honestly. Who cares about the quality of our show? Rick and Morty then get captured by the monsters. Rick gets trapped in a wall of sauce. I'm pretty sure this is a Star Wars reference. Ironically enough, even with that whole anti-woman subplot thing going on, the ruler of these monsters is the queen, who can actually talk, unlike all the other Orgazagoblins. I'm really calling them that. What am I doing with my life? This is when Rick finds out what's actually going on here, because the queen explains that they need Morty to create more monsters for her army. Not sure why they specifically need Morty for all of this, and they can't just like get other people to mix and match. That's never explained. Rick is obviously kind of mad because he realizes what Morty did. Morty cries a bit because he's a little baby. I have to blur most of this stuff out just to be safe. I have no idea how this aired on a TV 14 rating. The monsters force Morty to use the horse breeding machine from the very beginning again. And yes, it's as weird as I'm making it sound.
Oh.
Yes, the end is...
Jeez. I'm nervous laughing because I don't know how to react to this. I think this episode forgot to add the funny. While things seem really bad now, all of a sudden, Sticky shows up and saves the day. I guess this dude switched sides and decided to help Morty after all. Sticky saves both Rick and Morty somehow. I'm not sure how this specific monster could sense Morty was his father, but the others can't. Or maybe the others can, but they just don't care. Which, like, Why don't they care? You're telling me one of the monsters thought about protecting his dad out of like millions of them? I don't know, it just doesn't make sense. This is when we cut to the president again, who's now in Vegas. I guess the army set up a giant egg to attract all the sauce monsters. The president talks with Rick over the phone and brags about how he's gonna be the one to solve the problem. And would you even believe me if I told you the absolute worst part of this episode hasn't even happened yet? Because oh boy, it's happening right now. This is when Morty confesses and tells everyone that the monsters actually belong to him, which if that isn't bad enough, we as the viewer find out that the egg they're using to attract the monsters in the first place actually belongs to Summer, Morty's sister. Oh my god, I wish I was kidding. I'm sure you can put two and two together on why this not only causes panic within the episode, but why people just think that this is a really weird episode. Like, it's very easy to not include a detail like that. I'm not even offended by it. I understand it's just a TV show and it's fiction or whatever. I just think it's weird. Do you not think this is like a little bit weird, even by Rick and Morty standards? Anyway, the president quickly orders to launch the egg into space. That way it'll be out of reach for all the monsters to get into it. Of course, there's a long timer before it can launch though, because it's a fictional story and that's how that works.
Launch it now!
But that'll take 30 minutes.
What? Why?
That's a classic. Every rocket launch in movies has a Windows 98 boot up time. Gotta respect the rule. That's just how it is. Anyway, the scientist guy jumps off the building and gets eliminated by fall damage. We never ever see him again. I'm not kidding. Skipping back to Rick and Morty, and turns out they've been taken by the cannibal horse people that were mentioned all the way at the beginning of the episode. Remember them? They were mentioned in like one sentence or something. The horse people are gonna boil our heroes alive until some random horse lady we've never seen before interrupts the process and explains that Rick got her pregnant because why the hell not? Let's just add a dancing Thanos in the background while we're at it. Might as well. Makes as much sense as everything else going on. Back to the surface, and there's a couple of war jokes I'm skipping over because they're not that funny. And honestly, I'm kind of over this episode at this point. The monsters come attacking and are too strong for the human military. Summer and her mom start kicking ass for a bit because I guess that's their redemption for being mistreated the entire episode. Out of nowhere, all the horse people show up to help because Rick is chill with them now. I find it weird that Rick was specifically trying to make a weapon that would only affect the horse people, but this new one that he created somehow doesn't only affect regular people. You would think it would work both ways. You would think the horse people would be immune to this bioweapon, but whatever. None of that matters at all though, because in the end, Sticky, the one dude we thought we could trust, straight up just flies into the egg, and yeah, that's the big climax. No pun intended. Summer tries to blow it up, but the president stops her.
Screw that.
That's a human life. And this is an election cycle.
The egg rocket launches into space with the monster inside it. The katana guy's wife shows up randomly, but it's not even that funny or anything. Not sure why this is in here. Rick makes out a little bit with the horse girl that he has a kid with. All of this is super rushed at the end and doesn't have any long-term consequences because the episode basically just ends there. That is until we get a scene after the credits. Cue the obnoxiously loud Marvel music. We get a scene where some astronaut is in space, just chilling, and all of a sudden a fully birthed giant baby is now floating in space. The baby grabs the astronaut and shakes him up a bit. I'm pretty sure he's dead. And that's kind of the end of the episode. So, was this episode really that bad? You're telling me there's this gross, over-the-top premise this entire episode. There's extremely forced sexual humor throughout all of its runtime, and in the end, the punchline is, here's a giant incest baby between two siblings. Yeah, dude, I think I understand why people hate this thing. Listen, to play devil's advocate, there are some good jokes in this episode, kind of. If you're a big fan of Rick and Morty, there's probably still some moments that could get you to chuckle, but like, I don't know, dude. In a show about an alcoholic scientist who constantly drags his grandson around different timelines, you'd think they wouldn't have to make an episode like this. Like, surely there was other options here. I'm not a TV critic by any means. I'm just a dude who watches a lot of TV shows. And to me, as the consumer of the product, this felt a bit lazy, a bit gross, a bit weird, and just a bit unnecessary. The baby does show up in a later episode randomly, like one whole season later. Morty ends up calling the baby Naruto, which is somehow funnier to me than this entire episode I just watched. But even then, the baby floats away or something, never to be seen again. I got a bunch of nasty comments in my last Rick and Morty video because most people are really mean and swore that this was the absolute worst this series had to offer. I know not everyone's gonna agree with this, but like, come on, dude. Let's not act like this is one of the best episodes or anything, okay? It's not that good, and that's just how it be sometimes. Also, this is barely an Independence Day parody. I'm not sure why they even called it that, to be honest. But anyway, that's the end of the video. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and comment. It helps the channel out a bunch. Leave the word goop in your comments somewhere so I can heart it or something. I don't know. Become a member for only a single $1. It gets your name at the end of all my future videos and is the best direct way to support me. Shout out to all my current members. You guys are the best. Seriously, thank you guys so much. Paula Abdul scores this one a solid 2 C men out of 5. And yeah, thanks for watching.
We just took a fat L, and what we need is
A straight shooter.